Hello, welcome back to the Snake Pit, where we've got a new series for you called the Stellaris Academy. Now, what is going to be the idea behind this series? Essentially, it's a pretty common fact, I think, that Paradox games in particular can be difficult to learn with the amount they change them and their DLC policies. As in, they release DLCs that will completely change the game. Now, I also know that getting into any kind of 4X type strategy can be daunting, because it's things on a much larger scale and you've got so much to think about. So, my intention with this series is going to be playing as slow as I can, because I know that people that have been at Stellaris for hundreds of hours, like I have, can find it difficult to slow down and really explain what they're doing. Now, I know I've tried to do that in my other series, but this series is going to specifically be designed around teaching you Stellaris the game. So, this Stellaris is completely vanilla in the sense that I've got 0 mods in it from the workshop that will affect gameplay. The only things I've got on are an outliner mod, a UI mod, and some battle graphics things to make them look prettier. That's literally it. The UI stuff is mainly just because of my screen resolution. It makes it easier for me to look at and to in turn explain to you. So if you get into Stellaris, yours, unless you download the same mods from the workshop, will look slightly different to mine, but it will play exactly the same because I've got 0 game-changing mods in here. So I've got no planetary diversity, no NSC, anything like that at all. Okay, so make sure you subscribe to the channel if you like what I put out. Comment if I miss anything, or if you want some clarification. Like, share, because I really want to get this out there and really start growing the community. Okay, so let's get started from the beginning. So obviously the main menu is pretty self-explanatory, won't go into that. New game. Okay, so this is the first screen you will be greeted with. So on the right here you've got all the DLCs. As you can see, I've got all of them up to date, so they're all going to be active. And on the left here you have your pre-built civilizations that Paradox has made, and these will randomly appear in the game, but it will also make other random ones to encounter, so you won't necessarily meet these, but it's a possibility that you can. Now, as you can see here, I've got 3 that I've made myself. This is the current ones for my other playthrough, the Shami's Holy Imperium, so go check that out if you want. This button here, as you can see, because I've not got any mods on, it's coming up with errors that I can't activate these, because I made these with mods. But this button here, what this like eagle will do, will essentially tell the game that, say I'm playing as the Sidran Nexus here, I could tell it, if I activate these buttons, that I want these races that I've made myself to appear in the game. Okay, so very cool. You'll basically get to potentially meet races that you've made yourself in the game. Okay, again, it's not 100% they'll appear. However, there is a setting, I think it's if you push these buttons twice. So I think this button has kind of 3 settings, in that they won't appear at all, they will appear, there's a like random chance they will appear, or you can force them to appear so that you'll definitely see a race you've created. Now obviously if you've made a race with mods enabled that gives you more points for traits or ethics or civics or whatever else, the multitude of things out there, you could technically make the game more difficult for yourself by putting in some super beefed up civilization you made yourself as an enemy. But obviously that's completely up to you. So we're going to create a new species first so that we can walk you through this part of the game. Okay, so again, so you do create new and select, and you'll be put up with this. Okay, so these tabs on the left, self-explanatory what they're going to be for. As you can see, you can flick through them at your leisure. A lot of them will be purely for cosmetic and roleplay purposes. They'll have zero effect on the game except for naming conventions and stuff like that. They won't affect your gameplay at all, apart from, you know, if you want to roleplay the race properly. Okay, so your appearance, here you've got all of these here, so these are all races that if you get the game and the DLCs, you will have access to all of this. Okay, now appearance can tie into some specific things on this left side as well, and I believe it is the only thing that can. As an example, that if you pick machine, you have to be a Gestalt consciousness, so you have to be machine mind. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that that is definitely the kind of restriction that goes with at least your species' physical appearance. But we're just going to go with standard humanoid. As you can see, there's different kinds here, but we'll just pick standard boring human. Okay, so this is your species name. If you want to really get deep into the you know, the backstory of your species, you've got this option here to write something. So a nation built on tutorials and helping others learn. Okay, so there. The name, you can name it what you want, but remember this is your species, so you can literally, you know, it'll come up with anything. These names can typically be associated with what name list you've picked, but again, the game can just randomize it, or you can put it in as what you want. So we could do Terrans, as you know, is a pretty common one. Humans, Earthlings, name. So we'll call ourselves Earthling, and then here adjective, Earthling, plural will be Earthlings. So this basically affects the naming conventions used in the game of how other nations will interact with you and call you things on diplomacy. So, you know, when they say we've got problems with your Earthling policies or whatever, then it will use these terms. So if you get them wrong, it can create some quite comedic grammar errors and stuff, but again, it's not game changing at all. It's a very minor detail. Your name list. So again, these are all standard with the game. So you've got various different kinds of humanoid ones here. Excuse me. So we'll just go with humanoid 2. Okay, so your ship prefix. Again, this will just go before your ship names. Has no real consequence on the game, so you can put in what you want. So we'll do ESF for Earthling Space Fleet. Okay. Next. Okay, so your traits. So this is the real first screen where what you pick will have an effect on your gameplay. Now, as you can see, you've got points here. So you can pick 5 traits in total, vanilla, and these are your trait points. The game will not let you go into the negative with points, so it is about a balancing act. Okay, so species traits, green are positive, red are negative. Now as you can see, the red ones come with a negative modifier here. So as an example, if I was to pick non-adaptive, see my trait picks have gone down, but my trait points have gone up, which could potentially allow me to pick a positive trait with a higher point cost and fit that in. Okay? So typically what I pick in my games is intelligent. That's generally the first one I pick. Now obviously this is a tutorial, I'm not telling you to pick intelligent. You can make an incredibly stupid race if you wanted. It's completely up to you. This is literally just what I do and what I'm going to go for in this sort of walkthrough, playthrough type deal that I'm doing. Okay, so intelligent costs 2 points. As you can see, the points have gone down to 0. Trait picks to 4. Okay, so intelligent, engineering research from jobs, physics research from jobs, and society research from jobs plus 10%. For me personally, science is one of the most important aspects in the game, next to information on other species in the galaxy. If your science is bad, you will struggle to keep up, because a lot of the technologies that you can research will dictate to a degree how fast you can expand, the power of your navy, the bonuses from your mining stations and your population when they're working, everything like that. So for me, science is the most important thing in the game. I'm obviously not going to say that's a definite thing, but from my perspective, it is. Okay, so even though we've got trait points to 0 here, we can pick another positive, but this goes into the negative, and it won't let you save this species as complete unless the trait points left are either at 0, so balanced, or you've still got points left. Okay, so typically now I will pick a negative, just to obviously give me some more points. So it's completely up to you what you want to pick. I'll obviously go through what these different things mean if I pick them and everything as they appear in the game, because if I just dump a load of facts on you now what each of these modifiers mean, then it's going to overcomplicate things. And realistically, creating a race should be a fun thing, because you can really create what you want to put into the galaxy. Okay, so if we do sedentary, so we don't like to move around, and if we pick communal, makes sense. So we've got 2 trait picks left, but 0 points. So realistically, we could pick a really harsh negative and a good positive, or basically one more positive and one more negative we can pick if we wanted to, but I'm actually going to just leave that there as done. Okay, so this race here, Earthlings, we're intelligent, sedentary and communal. Okay, so next, your name and your class. So here, if we do, because we're going to be basing it on us as people, we will do the Sol system, which is where Earth is. Homeworld name, we will literally call it Earth since we're Earthlings. Okay. Star name will be Sol. So, however, you don't have to make Earth continental if you don't want to. You could make it frozen. You could make it a savanna world. It's completely up to you. But this will dictate your species' habitability preference. So if you pick a desert world, your species as a whole will be far more obviously comfortable on the dry series of worlds. Though, like with zero research done, if you come across another desert world, you will have the highest habitability to colonize it. Whereas if you come across, a wet world or something in the frozen category, it will be a hell of a lot worse. You could even get 0% habitability if it's a particularly harsh world. Okay, so we'll just go for bog standard continental. Keep it simple. City appearance, completely cosmetic. It just determines what it looks like and your species portrait in the background. So again, mix and match. It really doesn't matter. I mean, we could have an avian city if we wanted, or a fungoid one. I think we'll just go for humanoid though. It looks nice. Okay. So your empire, your origin story. Now this mostly has an effect on the very start of your game. However, there are some you can pick that will have consequences or issues that you will have to deal with through various means throughout the game, even towards the end of it. So you see here, this, if we were to wanted to make it so the game even warns you, warning challenging origin. So if you were to pick Doomsday, your homeworld will explode within 35 to 45 years after the game starts. Valuable resources from the doomed planet's mantle boost production on the surface. No guaranteed habitable worlds will spawn near your home system. Okay, so if you wanted to go super hard, you could pick Doomsday if you wanted. I definitely wouldn't recommend it for your first playthrough, because this would really be jumping in at the deep end, because this essentially means that if you're unlucky, you could essentially lose the game in 35 to 45 years, because you wouldn't find another suitable planet to colonize, your homeworld explodes, game over for you. Okay, so there's all sorts here. Like here on the shoulders of giants. Due to some unknown past, this civilization has hidden boons in their solar system, placed there by a mysterious benefactor. So you'll start with a special archaeological site that you can excavate to find out about this. So that's quite a nice one. Remnants. So you'll start with a relic world as your home world. Reclaim your lost glory. So a relic world is a special type of planet, which, if you pick this, you'll see that it changes to a relic world at the top. It's no longer continental. Okay. So here, prosperous unification. A stable planetary unification has allowed this civilization to prosper and grow. Start the game with an additional 4 population and with an additional 2 planetary districts. Okay, so this is probably the most simple starting thing, so we'll just go with prosperous unification. Government and ethics. Okay, so this is where you pick essentially the your type of government. Now, this isn't final. You can reform your government throughout the course of the game, depending on the situation, events, things like that. You can reform your government, however it will cost you an in-game resource called influence, which is probably one of the hardest things to gain, so it can be very expensive in that regard, and reforming your government can stunt your growth as an empire because you need influence to expand your borders. Okay, so again, if you pick this one here, the Gestalt consciousness, that basically means that we'd be a hive mind, and as you can see, it disables the tutorial, so we won't be picking that. So you've got your authority here. Corporate is part of the Megacorp DLC. So if you wanted to be a corporate emperor, not emperor, empire, think Wayland Yutani from the Alien franchise is the easiest thing to equate this to. Basically, you can build corporations on alien worlds and stuff like that to create, to generate credits and things like that. We won't be picking this because this is a more advanced sort of thing to get your head around once you've really grasped the basics. So I think if we do dictatorial, so they'll hold an election upon ruler death to select a new ruler. Empire sprawl penalty -10%. It's pretty generic authority type, and then you can pick your ethics here. As you can see, you've got 3 points. If you pick an orange one, they take up 2. Okay, and picking certain ones will disqualify you from picking certain authority types. Okay, so we want to stay with a dictatorship. So if we pick we're militarist, and we're authoritarian. Okay, so these are our 2 ethics. This is generally what our population will follow, but they can divert from these throughout the course of the game, again through events and things that happen. Your civics on the right here, you'll notice these grey ones, they're greyed out because of the authority type and the ethics type we've chosen. Okay, so though these picks here limit what civics you have action to, options to pick, I should say. Okay, so again, as you can see here, it will generally tell you in the tooltip what the requirement is. So as you see, requirements is some degree of pacifist and does not have these origins. Okay, so if we were to pick pacifist ethics, then this agrarian ideal would come up as an option that we could pick. Okay, so the game is quite good at telling you why you can't pick a certain thing. Okay, but we can go with police state here, which gives us enforcers, produce 1 unity, and stability +5. Now I'll obviously go into these with more detail when we actually get to playing through this sort of tutorial playthrough. Enforcers is a job type that your population can work, unity is a resource, and stability is a planetary modifier. Okay, now I'll obviously go, as I said, I'll go into these in more detail as we go along. And I think we'll go with nationalistic zeal. Okay, so everything checks out there. You see on the left here, everything is white. If something wasn't working or didn't mix well, then it would be red like this here. Okay, so advisor voice, again, completely.
Maintaining state cohesion as we venture into space presents a unique challenge. We shall face the challenge head on, and we shall be stronger for it.
Okay, completely cosmetic. Just because I've picked militarist authoritarian, I don't have to go with these at all.
Hull integrity failing, decompression imminent. It's been an honor, Captain.
I could go with the soldier if I wanted.
It is a good day to die.
Militarist.
Dissent is forcefully discouraged.
So we'll just go with the authoritarian one. Empire name, again, you can click the random button as many times as you want. Okay. So we'll just go with the Earthling tutorial Empire. Okay. Adjective Earthling. It's fine. Doesn't really matter that much. Okay. Flag, again, completely cosmetic. However, the colours that you pick here will determine what colours your ships have in game. Okay, so again, this is something that you might want to be a bit picky over if you want your ships to look a certain way. Okay, so you won't have, again, this is one of those graphical mods that I mentioned at the start. I've got more logos than you'd have access to. So you won't have this many picks, but you'll have a lot. So if we go for, say, let's go for this one here. So then you can pick various excuse me, backgrounds. So primary colour, I think that looks quite nice. Oh, sorry, primary colour would be the one on the right. So the secondary colour of the black I think looks quite good. And the primary colour, I think if we go for sort of maroon look. Okay. So ship appearance, again, cosmetic. So different options. These are all standard. None of these are added in. So if you have the game in its DLCs, you'll get access to these. Okay. And again, this is a completely cosmetic option. We could go with just a standard humanoid if we wanted. Or we could go with Necroid. Wouldn't matter. Doesn't change anything. It's literally cosmetic. Okay. But we'll go with humanoid. And then the ruler. This is who do you want to be in charge to start off with. We'll just have a female leader to begin with. You can change what they look like. Again, doesn't affect anything. But purely cosmetic things. So this would really, I think, only matter if you know you're playing multiplayer online, because then other people besides you would actually see what you're looking at. Okay. So just do the name. Okay, Japra Cap, Grand Marshal, it's fine by me. If we're male, Grand Marshal is the same. Again, you can change it based on gender if you wanted. Now that is something to remember, is if you're going down the roleplay route, if you change it for female, it will not change it for male, so you'd have to change it here too. Otherwise it would be otherwise the game would run and you'd have the given name instead of the one you wanted. So it's just something to remember, that if you change it for male or female here for the ruler title, you have to do it for the other gender as well. Okay, so we'll do next, and then it gives you an overview. So the Earthling Tutorial Empire, Continental World are our appearances, the origin, our traits, what we look like, what we're called, our government, our ethics, and our civics. Okay. Then you go down here to the left, click save, we'll save successfully. Okay, there we go, so we're here, and as you can see, this button is active here. Yeah, that's okay. So here, when it's just orange, it's the Earthling Tutorial Empire is allowed to appear in a regular game instead of a randomly generated empire. Click it again with the padlock. The Earthling Tutorial Empire will always appear in a regular game instead of a randomly generated empire. Or off, it is not allowed to appear. Okay, so as we're going to be playing these, that option doesn't matter at all. So we'll do select. Okay. So I know that this is a lot to do, and we're not even technically in the game yet, but this is all very important for people to learn because the game is all about options, and it is daunting when you first get into it. Okay, so your galaxy size, again, for if you have a large galaxy and a lot of other AI empires, it will affect your FPS and things like that. So if you've got a beefy rig, by all means go for a large galaxy and lots of other empires. Completely up to you if you think your computer can handle it. Just for this tutorial purpose though, we're going to go for a medium 600 star. Galaxy shape is pretty inconsequential. We'll go for spiral forearms. Habitable worlds. So this number here, the more you change this, if you put it up to 5 times, that means that 5 times the amount of habitable worlds will appear in the galaxy. So if you want a super easy game with lots of places to colonize, you bump this setting up. If you wanted it harder with hardly anywhere to colonize, so you limit both yours and the AI's expansion, you could set it down to 0.25. This would be a very hard playthrough because, you know, habitable planets will be really rare, but at the same time it would create a good incentive to going to war with other empires because they've managed to find a really good world and you want it for your own species. Okay, so again, it's an option you can have. So we'll just leave it as a standard one. Guaranteed habitable worlds. This setting is pretty self-explanatory. What it means is that when you start the game and the galaxy is generated, the game will give you a guaranteed 2 habitable worlds that will be very near your home system. So it can give you a bit of a boost. You can turn it off or have it at 1 or 2. Okay, so we'll just leave it at the setting of 2. Empire placement, random or clusters. Again, random is as it says random. You could start in near the core or on the outer rim. If you do it in clusters, this means that the game will spawn empires, as it says, in clusters in the galaxy itself. So you could get lucky and you get placed in a cluster all on your own and not meet anyone else, or you'll find that you're put in a cluster where everyone's super close to you, and as soon as you start exploring, you basically bump into the other races straight away. So we'll just leave that on random. I find this to be the most fun because you could meet someone right away, or you could spend 300 years exploring and not meet anyone at all. So, you know, primitive civilizations. Okay, so this is for pre-FTL civilizations. I, as a player, don't particularly enjoy primitive civilizations You might, again, it's completely up to you. Again, you can put this all the way up to 5 times, so you'll encounter loads of them. I'll put this on a higher setting than I usually would, just so there's more chance of actually meeting them. Because primitive civilizations can have quite a big impact on the game, in that you can just downright invade them if you want and take them over, or you can help guide them and enlighten them so that they actually become their own spacefaring race. So again, completely up to you. Hyperlane density. This determines how many hyperlanes there are that connect star to star. So again, if you do full, there's going to be hyperlanes everywhere. You're probably going to find it hard to defend key systems because you know, the system will have, you know, a ridiculous amount of hyperlanes connected to it, so you could be attacked from multiple directions. I tend to have this on the lowest setting it will go, because in my view it creates a more tactical game, because you can properly create defensive choke points and things like that. Abandoned gateways and wormhole pairs. These two kind of go hand in hand in the sense that they're basically the same thing. Abandoned gateways are things that you will find throughout the galaxy that you have to research in order to understand, but they basically link 2 points in the galaxy together so that you can travel through once you've researched it and travel from one place to another instantly. And wormholes are exactly the same, except they require less research to get access to. All you really have to do for wormholes is research wormhole stability, send a science ship to examine the wormhole, and then you can use it. That's pretty much it. So we'll just leave that as actually even it out. Okay. Tech tradition cost. Again, if you wanted a really slow, expensive game, you could bump this right up. If you wanted it super easy to get through the tech and tradition trees, you put it right down. We're just going to leave it as standard. Okay, logistic growth and growth required. So recently, Paradox introduced new population mechanics to try and help some of the late game lag and slowdown, because population was found out to be the main cause because of all the calculations that are needed. So the logistic growth and the growth required basically affects how fast your population will grow. If you bump these numbers up, as it tells you in the warning, it will bring significant performance and balance implications. So I tend to leave these settings alone. I found that they're fine as they are. If you want to change them in experiment, go ahead. I won't stop you. That's completely up to you. Okay. Caravaneers. These are, as it says, space-based traders. They randomly appear. They try and sell you random stuff. So we'll leave those on. Xeno compatibility. I think this is to do with, as it's an Ascension perk, this is to do with mixed races and stuff like that. Again, we'll just leave it on. I've never really seen it have any negative or positive consequence on the game. Maybe I've just not encountered it. But, so I'll just leave that. AI Empires. Now, because we're in a smaller galaxy, I'm only going to set this to, let's do 7, okay. Advanced AI starts. So again, this will be, if you want to make your game harder, you can put it up to 7. So basically, with 7 AI Empires and 7 Advanced AI starts, this would mean that you are a very basic civilization that's literally just discovered faster than light travel, and you will be extremely behind all the other AI empires, and it will make the game extremely difficult. And you'll likely find that all these advanced AIs will try and make you some sort of vassal state. Okay, so which could be an interesting thing to work around, as in you're a vassal or something like that, and you try and get out of it. However, that being said, if you do become a vassal, you have to work pretty hard and fast in order to get out of this vassalization, because the AI Empire could simply confederate you, which basically means they absorb you into their own empire, and that would be game over for you, because your empire technically no longer exists. Then you just become part of the other one. So I always put this 0 or off, so everyone's on a even footing at the start. Okay, advanced neighbours, this would only take effect if you had any advanced AI starts on. So you can do it, so if we had 1 and we put it on, then we'd have that advanced AI start next to us. Okay, so we'll leave that off. Fallen Empires. A Fallen Empire is pretty much an empire that's been around for thousands of years, but they've stagnated as an empire, and they literally just, they sort of exist as a super powerful entity within the galaxy that, depending on which one they are, they can be friendly, they could be antagonistic, they can ask requests of you and things like that. You can annoy them by colonizing near them, and they'll basically tell you to back off, and if you don't, they'll declare war on you, which, if that happens early game, can essentially be, again, a game over, because you will in no way have the navy or technology required to even compete with the Fallen Empire until much, much later in the game. That being said, as long as you understand the Fallen Empires that you meet and you don't annoy them, they're literally just a thing that's there that will occasionally talk to you. But they can interact with each other, and they can cause an event to happen at some point throughout your gameplay. So we'll leave that on 2. Marauder Empires are basically pirates, in a sense. They're pirate empires. They fight amongst themselves and raid you. They'll try and extort you out of resources. If you don't pay them, they'll attack you, that kind of thing. So we'll only put that on 1. The Crisis Strength. Okay, so this is the end game crisis. If you wanted this really hard, again, you'd bump it up 25 times. It'd be absolutely insane. Off, there won't be a crisis at all, self-explanatory. We'll leave it on 1. Crisis type random, you can pick it what you want. We'll leave it on random. Your difficulty, again, it tells you in this pop-up here which is which, so captain is kind of the normal. They get slight bonuses to their economy, research and naval capacity, so we'll just leave it on that. The scaling difficulty, so they'll start off on the same foot as you, but as the game progresses it will scale up to the difficulty you've picked. AI aggressiveness, again, self-explanatory. Low, normal or high, I tend to leave it on normal. Your mid-game, end-game and victory year is kind of sets how certain events and things can pop up and happen. I personally like really long games, so I set these really high. So we'll just leave that as like it is there. Okay. Is this only a tutorial playthrough? Put it to 2300. The end game there, and the victory year will be there. Okay, Iron Man mode, Say console cheats are disabled and the game is automatically saved regularly to a single file. In games played with this setting, there is no turning back. So again, this is a hardcore sort of setting, so we're going to leave that off. So that's our game set up. I'll click play. Okay, so here we go. Welcome to the galaxy. It'll give you a brief little sort of RP rundown, and again show you the basics of your empire. Click begin. Okay, we're now in the game, but we're not going to click play yet. I'm now going to explain the UI for you. Now again, yours will look different to mine. I've got mods installed that make the UI easier for me to deal with based on my screen resolution because it is quite large. Okay, so I'll now just go through the UI with you. If you hold the right mouse button, you rotate the map. Again, scroll wheel zooms out, pretty basic stuff. At the bottom here, you can see the game's paused right now, nothing's running at all. If you click this button here or push the M or E keys, you'll go to the galaxy map. Okay. So as you can see, we've spawned right on the outer rim here, so this is quite good. So from the galaxy view, scroll right out, this is our galaxy here. As you can see, this border here is our current territory. These blue lines are all the hyperlanes to get to these other star systems. These little planet icons mean that there's a planet here that is potentially habitable, but we don't know yet because we've not surveyed it. Okay. So, because it's sort of within our sensor range, we can go into the system and look at it, but we don't know anything about the planets. Okay. We know what they are because obviously we can see them with sort of Earthborn telescopes and stuff like that, but we can't see the details of the planet at all. Okay. Again, we'll click out, click here, so we're back in our home system now. Okay. So when you start, your home system will have obviously your colonized planet. You'll have a space station over your star, and you will have some mining stations already set up, mining and science stations set up, but you will have some that are open that you have to manually build yourself. Okay. The game also starts you with a very, very small fleet, so you have 3 corvettes. You get a science ship, which is here, and you get a construction ship, which is here. Okay. Now if you want to focus in on a ship or a fleet, you double click it and it will do that. For a fleet, if you want an individual ship, you actually have to mouse over it and double click it and you'll focus on an individual ship instead of the fleet. For a construction ship, again, or a science ship, you just double click it and the camera will focus in on it. Okay, so you get to look at things in all their glory. Now, I'm not going to explain the planetary UI or anything like that for now. This will literally be just this UI you can see here, and that will be the end of this video. Okay, because it's long already and I know that I've spoken an awful lot already, so I want to keep it in concise chunks as I can, so it makes it as easy to follow. Okay. These buttons at the bottom here will tell you from a galaxy view, they will tell you what you have on the entire galaxy. So if we had multiple systems colonized with planets, this would pop up and it would tell you everything you have. Okay. But because we've only got the one, they only show what we've got. And if we're on the system view, then it tells you what you have in system. Okay. On the left here, each of these menus. Okay, so we have our contacts. As of right now, we've just started the game. We only know ourselves. We haven't met anyone yet. But as the game progresses, this will fill up with different empires that we meet and interact with. This little symbol here, which you can sort by, is the relation. So as you meet and interact with other races, you'll meet some that dislike you, you meet some that absolutely love you, and this relation thing here, which will appear down here, will tell you by how much. Status will change, diplomacy status, so if you're at war, federation, etc. How many planets you've got, sort by relative power. So technically this sort by relative power one, as you meet fallen empires, if you sort by relative power, they will generally always be at the top because they're fallen empires and they're insanely powerful. The federation, if they happen to be in one, and if they're at war or not. Okay. Situation log is an important screen to keep track of. So as you can see, victory conditions, we're currently rank 3, score 185, but we literally just started the game, so this screen doesn't mean anything. But it says here, on January 1st, 2725, the unidentified empire will win the game. Okay, so the idea is to be rank 1 and win. You can do that through numerous means. Anomalies here will list things that your scientists find while surveying planets. They will appear here. The situation log itself will be various research events, excavation sites, special events that you can research, new contacts, everything will sort of appear here. So this situation log is your go-to for things to be sort of categorized. So say you save the game and you come into it like a week later or something like that and you forget where you are, you can look at the situation log and see what's going on in your empire in the galaxy to sort of refresh your memory. You can use it as a way to keep you focused and on track if you want, but basically everything important that can affect your empire will be listed here to some degree. Okay. Market, self-explanatory. At the moment, because we've just started, it's an internal market, but it is where you can exchange, sell and buy the various different resources in the game. Planets and sectors. As of right now, we've only got one planet, one sector, but this will go into more detail over this later on, but this will be where as you grow, where your other sectors that you decide and the planets they contain will be listed here, and it will say whether the AI is controlling them or you are. I will say this here, generally when learning Stellaris, I highly encourage people to manually micromanage your empire as much as you can, as it will help you learn what works and what doesn't. You can let AI control the sectors and planets, which means they will control what's built on them based on the settings you give them. Obviously it is AI, it's not foolproof, and you might come up with a question of, well, why is it built this, why is it built that? So I highly suggest, to begin with, for your first few games, micromanage everything. If you find you don't like it, by all means put the AI in charge. It's up to you, but as a suggestion to help you learn, I would suggest you micromanage everything. Expansion planner. So as you can see here, because we only know the Sol system, we've got Mars as a potential expansion. Now this won't happen till way later in the game because it requires certain technology to do it, but as you can see here, it has a modifier of terraforming candidate, which means that as though the world is barren and devoid of life, with the correct technology, you can terraform it and make Mars habitable. Okay, so as we explore and expand, this will fill up with planets and such, and as you can see, it gives their size, their distance, what districts they have, and the modifiers that we know exist on the planet. So this will fill up, and you can manually select these and colonize them and things like that. Policies. Generally, at the very start of the game, before I even press play, I go through and I set these basic policies that generally every empire starts with, so that you can dictate how the start of the game goes for you. Okay, so your diplomatic stance, as you can see, just hovering over gives you benefits and negatives. Okay, I like belligerent for the simple fact that it has no negatives, but again, it's completely up to you. So I'll set that to belligerent, but as you can see here, it gives you a warning. If you change a policy, you can't change it again for 10 years. So just bear that in mind. If you change something and you think, oh crap, I didn't want to do that, you've got to wait 10 years before you do it, unless you saved beforehand, in which case you can obviously then just reload the game and not do it. Okay. War philosophy. So defensive wars, liberation wars, unrestricted wars. We're just going to leave it on unrestricted, which basically means that we can declare war on whoever we want, whenever we want, for generally whatever reason we want. Liberation would be so if someone's got different ethics to you, you could use that as a reason to go to war with them. And you can only claim other systems. It's only allowed during defensive wars or against a Gestalt consciousness empire. Okay, and defensive wars is basically, if you're a pacifist empire, people have to declare war on you. Basically, you can either go to war with an ally, if say they're declared war on, and obviously you'd then be in a defensive war because you're an ally, and you could join them. That's pretty much it, and that's the only time you can claim systems with this setting, would just be in a defensive war. So someone declares war on you, and then you set your war goals for their systems, even though they've declared war on you. So we'll just leave that with unrestricted. Orbital bombardment. This dictates how you, as it says, bombard other planets from orbit. Indiscriminate means you don't really care about the life on the surface. Selective allows only the bombardment of identified military targets while keeping civilian casualties to a minimum. So we'll actually put this on selective. Resettlement. This dictates whether you can forcefully move population around your worlds, so we'll leave this on allowed. First contact, again, pretty self-explanatory, how you're going to react when you first meet other species within the galaxy. So proactive, cautious, or aggressive. I tend to go with cautious. Again, it's completely up to you. It has no real large bearing on how the game will progress. Initial border status. So when you first meet another empire and you actually open communications with them, you can start with completely closed borders. Closed borders will mean that they cannot obviously enter your territory, and typically if you have closed borders with them, they'll immediately close their borders with you, and that gives you negative modifiers to trust in something straight off the bat. Again, depending on what empire you're playing and other factors, if you want to roleplay properly or not, that's completely up to you. I'm just going to leave it on open. Economic economy, as you can see here, civilian economy, you get less alloys but more consumer goods. Militarized, you get less consumer goods but more alloys. Keep it mixed, so we get no negatives. Trade policy, you see this will give you benefits based on what you pick. Here, just a trade value earns you 1 energy credits. Just 1 flat energy credit. Each collected trade value earns you 0.5 energy credits and 0.25 consumer goods, or the ideas, which is 0.5 energy credits and 0.25 unity. So I think if we stick on wealth creation. Robotic workers, self-explanatory. If you research robots, do you want them outlawed, or are they going to be allowed? We'll just leave that on allowed for now. Population controls, on whether you can institute selective population controls, whether that will be legal or illegal to do so. Slavery, again, prohibited or allowed. I'm going to prohibit this. I don't want slaves, so we'll prohibit slavery. And purge is basically your stance on getting rid of other species that may inhabit planets that you take over. Things like that. Displacement only means that you basically just remove them from the planet. It's forceful relocation, basically. They become refugees and they have to leave because they're undesirables. You can prohibit that entirely, which means that basically you can't remove any unwanted population off your planets. Or you can do allowed, which basically means that you can kill them outright, turn them into food, do all sorts of things. Okay, so we'll keep it on displacement only. Edicts, as we've just started, we've only got 2: fortify the border and information quarantine. As you can see, it tells you what they're going to do and what the cost is on the right here. As we've only just started the game, we can only have 1 edict running at once, and it will tell you, let's see here, lasts until cancelled. So if we were to do fortify the border for 90 influence, it would give us these bonuses and this negative until we decided to turn it off. Okay, so I'm not going to turn any of these on because I don't want to do any of these, so just ignore that for now. Now your society management. Okay, so this here is the tradition tree. These are your extension perks. Okay, so this will probably be very familiar to you if you've ever played the Civilization series of games. Okay, so you've got the expansion, domination, prosperity, harmony, supremacy, diplomacy, and discovery. So these will give you various bonuses, etc. And then when you complete the tree fully, you get a finisher effect. When you adopt a tree, you get an adoption effect. Fully completing a tree will unlock an ascension perk for you, which is another bonus you can pick that will affect your empire as a whole. And in later game, they can get really powerful. They unlock new research options for you, new build options, things like that. Okay, your relic screen, as you excavate archaeological sites and things like that throughout the galaxy, they have the ability at the end of the sort of excavation chain, you may find a relic. If you have a relic within your empire, these are activated here, and it will show a little image here of what the relic is, and you'll mouse over it and it will show you what it will actually do, and then you click it and you can activate it. It does have a cost to activate things, but we'll obviously go over that when it arrives. As you can see right now, Crisis is blocked out, can't click it, can't do anything with it. And this is because to become the Crisis, you have to complete a tree, whichever one you want to do, it wouldn't matter. Complete a tree and then pick the Become the Crisis Ascension perk, in which case this Crisis menu here would open and you can do various things to basically become the bad guy in the galaxy. Your ship designer, it's self-explanatory. I'm not going to go through this fully now, but this is where you essentially design your ships what modules you want on them, what weapons you want on them, what you call them, shields and armour, everything like that, and it gives you an overview of what they cost and everything like this, but I will go over this in more detail at a later date. Your fleet manager, again, I will go over this at a later date, but this is where you basically assign what ships and ship classes you'd like within a fleet and their number, and then you can reinforce that fleet and it will build it to your specifications. So even if a fleet is wiped out, the template for it will still be here. So say this fleet here was completely wiped out of the galaxy, I could then rebuild it back to these specifications. Okay. Technology, as I said with science, the most important thing that I personally believe in the game is science and technology. I'm not going to touch this yet. I again will go through this in the next episode, but this is where you pick your research. Factions. This will not matter at all until later in the game. Generally, factions start popping up when you've colonised your first, maybe your second planet. Until, if you only have one planet, they don't tend to pop up at all. I have found occasionally that if you discover another race before you colonise your first planet, this can cause factions to pop up, but they will generally be centred around dealing with other species within the galaxy. Again, this is something I will go over at a later date when it actually becomes something to think about. Claims. Nothing to claim right now. We don't know any other empires. Again, this would be making claims on other empires in the case of going to war, so we won't go over that. Species. This is the species we know of in the entire galaxy. As you can see here, you can change it here. Empire species, so within our empire. Galaxy, within the galaxy. Okay, and this will change this list here. From this screen, you can set the rights of the species, as you can see, because we're Earthlings, we're obviously full citizenship and everything like this. Certain options will pop up here depending on the research you undertake, so that can change. And then finally, last button, leaders. So, governors manage sectors. Within sectors are planets. So at the moment we've got Earth, and it's managed by Rold Vagras, so she is the governor. If we were to colonise something and it was within the same sector as Earth, then she would also be the governor for that planet as well. So it just sort of splits it down into more manageable things, and obviously your governor has bonuses here which can affect they affect all the planets within the sector that this governor is looking after. Okay, so this bar here is her experience level. Governors just level up passively just by being a governor. They will gain experience and gain levels, and they have the chance to gain new traits through leveling up. It's all completely random. But as you can see here, she's level 1. We've just started the game. You can see as she levels up, the skill level effects will change and become greater numbers. Okay, and this is one of her traits here, and again she's an intellectual, so this leader is naturally inclined towards the sciences and seeks to foster a curiosity about the natural world in their subjects. So this basically means that our science centres produce more research. These are our scientists. So we've got one for each field: engineering, society and physics. And we have the 4th scientist that's in our only science ship at the moment. They're all level 1. Like governors, scientists that are studying the physics, society and engineering fields gain research passively as they research. Scientists that are in a science ship gain experience from surveying surveying star systems, excavating sites, completing anomalies, things like that. Okay, admirals, generals, self-explanatory. Admirals you'd put in charge of fleets, generals you'd put in charge of ground forces. Okay. This button at the top here is your government. This is where you'd go to if you wanted to reform it. So you click this here, and this is where I mentioned earlier that you can pick different things, but it costs here, influence costs 250. Okay. But again, this just gives you an overview. It tells you the traits of your ruler currently, what their current agenda is. The next election is only on ruler death because we picked a dictatorship. Okay. Our diplomatic weight. Diplomatic weight is something that will only really matter later on when the galactic community actually forms. So this number doesn't technically mean anything for now, but it's something to keep an eye on. It's basically a sense of our empire's power as a whole based on our technology, our fleets, our population, and our economy. Okay. So now onto the resources. Energy credits is basically, well, as it says, energy credits. It's the sort of currency of the galaxy. Things cost energy credits to build or buy, but that's not necessarily all they'll cost. They could cost energy credits and minerals, energy credits and food, etc, etc, etc. Alloys are perhaps the most important resource that you can have, because without alloys you can't build ships and keep on top of your naval power. So alloys are really important. They also go towards ship maintenance and stuff as well. Minerals are a basic resource. You can find them on asteroids and other planets, like here. This asteroid here has 3 minerals on it. So if we were to build a station above this, we'd then start collecting those 3 minerals and they get added to our total here. Okay. Generally, minerals are a base resource because things get made from them. Okay. So alloys get made via population jobs. Minerals will get turned into alloys, minerals will get turned into consumer goods, etc, etc. Consumer goods, this is basically, as it says, consumer goods. It's obviously good to stay in the positive with this, but if you've got a large stockpile and you find you're in the negative, it's not a bad thing. But if you do run out of consumer goods, it can be a problem, because that will then have a knock-on effect and affect your research and things like that. Food, I don't really need to explain this. This is your food, it feeds your population. Some population types, like machine empires, obviously won't need food because they're robots. Okay. Minor artifacts, you discover these through excavating archaeological sites that you find throughout the galaxy, and you can research things to manually sort of produce them, and these are mainly used for activating relics and such, and doing special things over here on the right. Influence, as I mentioned, this is the hardest resource to generate. As you can see, we're only generating 4. We can have a max of 1,000, and you use influence for generally all important governmental decisions, and expanding your borders by building space stations in other systems. Okay, so influence is really important. Unity. So as you see, to bring up these menus, I'm literally just clicking on the resource. Okay, so clicking on any of the commodities will bring up the market. Clicking on the artifacts will bring up the tradition and relic screen. Unity brings up obviously the tradition screen. and influence will bring up the edict screen. Now unity is essentially a measure of your population's unity. As you can see here, we need 300 unity, which will take us 19 months to get, and that will then mean that we can invest when we get our first unity. This bar fills, we can then invest in our first tradition, and it goes on from there. The costs increase as you go through the trees and pick up perks and stuff. As your empire gets larger, the costs increase. So it's never going to be this easy again to get our first unity point. Okay. This here is the amount of science we're producing in total. So physics, society and engineering, you know, flat 20s across the board. This one here are our special resources. So as you can see, just by hovering over it, we're not creating anything at the moment, as again we've just started the game, so we don't know about any of these things. So volatile motes, exotic gases, rare crystals, living metal, zero, dark matter and nanites. All these things can be found throughout the galaxy through research. You can harvest them, create them, all sorts. And special resources will be needed for building and maintenance of advanced buildings on your planets, and for building advanced components on ships. This is your empire population in total. So we've got 32 right now. This is your envoy count. Envoys, think of envoys as basically spies and diplomats. You can use them for all sorts of things. When you first encounter a new species, you send an envoy to investigate them, so they will be your first contact. You use envoys in the galactic community. You can use envoys to improve or harm relations with other species. You can use envoys to build spy networks with other species and complete espionage tasks. We'll obviously not go into that yet. That will be at a later date. Here is your empire sprawl. So this is a measure of how effective your empire is at governing itself. As you gain population, as you expand, as you know, you gain planets and everything like that, the number on the left will increase, and if it exceeds the number on the right, this empire sprawl will go red. And if it goes red, that means that your empire is struggling to basically maintain its cohesion and its bureaucracy and stuff like that. And through a high empire sprawl, your research costs and other costs will be affected and they will go up. But while that sounds bad, I will say focusing on your empire sprawl is not what you want to do. This is literally, think of it as a soft cap. Going over this number here on the right really does not matter. Obviously you don't want to, you know, rocket past it and be at like 150 out of 150 because your technology costs would be extreme. You obviously want to keep it reasonable, but going over your population sprawl limit is not a bad thing. Okay, don't let this number, unless you specifically plan to, you know, roleplay a specifically strict species, which would be completely up to you. This is a guideline. Don't fret or worry if you go over it. Your starbase capacity, see we've got 1 out of 3. This is because we have this star hold here. So this is our first 1 out of 3. Now just expanding into other sectors will not increase this number. For this number to go up, say we built a space station here in Alpha Centauri, okay, it would still say 1 out of 3. For that to go up to 2 out of 3, we'd then have to upgrade the Alpha Centauri space station up a level, and then that would go to 2 out of 3. Okay, So this dictates how many advanced space stations you can have that are actually proper stations, i.e. for trading, shipbuilding, defence, things like that. This here is your naval capacity. The number on the left is what we've got, the number on the right is what we can have. So as you can see, we can effectively support a number of ships equal to 22 units worth of fleet size. I'll go into more detail on this as we actually start building fleets, etc. Again, fleets are limited by a command limit, but your naval capacity is again a guideline number. If you go over your naval capacity, it will start costing you exponentially more resources to upkeep your fleets. So this is a more hard number that you kind of want to keep below, because you obviously want to keep your costs as low as possible when it comes to your navy. In this blank space here, this is where your notifications will pop up when various things happen. As you can see, because we're not researching anything currently, we've got all the blank research modifiers here. They will go away when we pick research next episode. Okay, so this is called the outliner. This basically shows you your fleets, your stations, your planets, your sectors, and your science and construction ships. And as you expand your empire, this will expand down. Now yours will more than likely be bigger than this. As I said, I have a mod that changes it to this smaller size, so it makes it easier for me to navigate on my resolution. There's even a music player in the game, so these are all the standard stock songs. You can change the music volume, you know, go through the tracks, play what you want. Clicking the top here will resume the game, or you can press the spacebar. So spacebar will pause and play. The plus and minus symbols here will change the speed of the game and how fast it progresses. These buttons here are for accessing menus and such. So you've got your main menu button. Okay, help, search. So if you want to search for something specifically, like a known star system, you type it here if you can't find it within the galaxy. Go to your home system where it's located. These buttons here are map modes, so you can change how the galaxy looks to you. Okay, so you can turn off high planes if you don't want them on. Got the sectors map mode, trade routes, opinion map mode, neighbour map mode, AI attitude map mode. This will change colours based on what they think of you and what you think of them. Unions, trade routes, again I went through that. So we'll just keep it on Empire. Okay, so from here, we shall save this. And that will complete this first episode. I know it's been a long one and I've talked an awful lot to you. But from now on, in the next following episodes, the game will actually progress and we'll go through things as they happen. And I will fully explain why I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay? Again, like, comment, subscribe. Check the links in the description if you want. They very much help me out, as does subscribing and liking the video. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave a comment. If you need me to slow down, if I've missed something, if you've got any corrections that you think I should talk about in the next video, please feel free to comment below. Most importantly, take care and I'll see you next time.